Right, so I'm joined here with Hammy Burr. Hammy, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. Just chilling out tonight, so yeah, all good.
Good stuff. Would you like just to give an introduction about yourself, where you started your rugby, and just where you are just now?
So one of those I'll start in reverse. I'm on the other side of the world at the moment. So I'm across in sunny old New Zealand, which isn't too bad. But I started at the humble club of Aberdeen Wanderers to begin with as a young fella. Well, I think it was 13, 12 at the time. So I just came into rugby late from football. Just tried an after school taster session. Gave it a shot. I was with Colin Phillips. He was the development officer at the time at Aberdeen Grammar. And yeah, he just came into my school, gave it a little taster, and I quite enjoyed that. So went to another few sessions like that, and he eventually pointed me towards Aberdeen Wanderers. So I remember heading up there on a Wednesday night, and it was actually sunny that night, believe it or not, and the light, so it wasn't too bad. And just kind of started to slowly fall in love with it from there, enjoyed it, and then came back for more and more, turned into like small minis festivals in P7 to start in P7. Loved that, and yeah, just continued playing more and more. Played alongside football until I was 16, and then I just kind of came to a point where I had to make a bit of a decision between rugby and football. So thankfully, I decided rugby and kind of jumped boat from there. And yeah, kind of kicked on a bit. Moved to school, moved up north, and moved down. Well, moved down to Australia for a year. Played there for a year, and kind of came back. Played for Aberdeen Grammar for a year. Back home, studied at Aberdeen College, coaching there. Then got an opportunity to go play down in Stirling in the Premiership. So played there for a year, just amateur, and then managed to pick up a stage 3 contract at that point with SRU. So played a year in the academy, made an appearance for Glasgow, and yeah, kind of opportunity to stop from there. So I was back playing amateur for a year for Stirling, but decided to come out to New Zealand at that point and had a bit of kind of just sent all my stuff out to rugby clubs around the country and decided to make an opportunity to come to Waikato, which is in the Hamilton or near Hamilton. That's kind of the area it's known as, and just played club rugby there for a year. Managed to get injured for 8 weeks of it, so that was a good start. And then picked up an NPC gig as a replacement player, and yeah, kind of haven't looked back since. Had an opportunity to train and play at quite a high level here, and yeah, that's been here for 2 years now, and coming up to my 3rd club season. So
Nice.
yeah, I love it over here. It's a good spot.
Good. Obviously, within like sort of our age range of 24, 25, and within the SRU, there's that typical, if you want to make it in professional rugby, you have to be making Scotland under 16s, under 18s, and under 20s. Obviously for you, that didn't happen.
Yeah,
That didn't happen.
Definitely didn't happen. Nah.
It didn't happen. But the level you're now playing at is significant. It's far better, as we know, from the Super Six and everything. So how did you essentially get to that process of playing for Waikato? It's not your typical rugby journey for someone from Aberdeen.
Nah, not from Aberdeen anyway. I think there's only a few of us now in that group that still play rugby, but still still talk to a few of them now and again. I don't know, just kind of always kind of focus on like the process of it as opposed to like final outcome. I think if you get too hung up on the outcome, then you kind of lose sight of everything, get a bit too despondent about things. And I think I still remember getting called by it was John Dalziel at the time was our Scotland 20s coach. I still remember getting called by him. I was training out in Sports Village and saying that you've attended the first camp for 20s, now you're dropped, and that's a bit of a punch in the gut. But I remember being like quite uplifted by it, or not uplifted, but quite strong-headed in terms of I still knew I was training hard. I still knew I had a lot of development to do. So I just thought, head down, we'll go for a new opportunity in Stirling. We can develop from there. And, like, I don't really see things at the end of the road. Like, I view it as it's kind of just like one person's kind of opinion of you at the end of the day. It's nothing. There's nothing. They don't personally hate me as a person. It's just they don't necessarily like my rugby yet. That's about you kind of taking the back seat and realizing that you're not a finished article and you have to go develop somewhere else. So that was a similar. Left Glasgow and said, "Oh, you're not attacking enough base player." And I thought, well, if there's one way I'm going to try crack it, better get better at attack. So let's come to New Zealand where they're actually known for attacking rugby, believe it or not. So just throw yourself in the deep end, and that was kind of recommended to come up this area, especially because of their flair. And yeah, just kind of learn from there and keep learning. And that's all you can do, really, is keep learning,
Totally.
keep chipping away. Don't take one
Absolutely.
person's opinion of it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Could you just give us an insight then into what rugby is like out in New Zealand, not just as a country, but specifically within the region you're in?
Oh, I think over here they absolutely love rugby. I think it's ridiculous how much they love it. I think the place you can see it is if you go to like a bar or a restaurant or whatever to watch a game of rugby, like Super Rugby or like especially the All Blacks, and like back home everybody chatting over the top. Over here it's like you can hear a pin drop. Everyone just sits and watches the screen in silence. So I feel it's my job being the non-Kiwi in the room to cheer for the other team sometimes, and just kind of poke the bear a bit. Even though like I think the way the All Blacks play is unreal, in the super teams, but in the Waikato, it's pretty open rugby. If you go to like different parts of New Zealand, it's like different rugby completely. So up in Auckland, it's a lot of big fellas running at big fellas, and down in Christchurch, and it's quite similar to the Northern Hemisphere how they play. Still pretty open, but in the Waikato, it's pretty loose. It's still quite forwards orientated, but when it gets played, like we'll play open. It's not as it's nowhere near as structured as you would be, but kind of back home playing, it's pretty much play. You'll know roughly what's getting to on the pitch, and they'll have a structure. But apart from that, we're just going to try play. We're going to try play at holes and play back down the south side, and it's pretty open rugby, which is good, and it's exciting to watch to say the least, even at clubland.
What's so what does like a typical day at training look like in comparison to what you maybe faced at Glasgow or teams in Scotland, like a typical day's training?
Yep. During the NPC season, this is like Waikato. A regular day would look like we'd come in about, I'm trying to think, it's a while ago now. We'd get in about 8:30 in the morning, kind of stretch and roll around for half an hour, and then we'd normally have a team meeting for 15, 20 minutes, and then we'd be out in pitch and we'd do like a walkthrough for 15 minutes, and then forwards kind of walk through lineouts for 15 minutes, depending on the day. And then we would go forwards, we'd either go to the gym, and we'd go lift heavy things around, and then the backs would go out and do whatever they do. I don't know what they do outside, kicking, I think, and some weird passing lines that never work, but that's a different story. And then we'd switch over as far as we'd go outside and have normally quite a low-key unit session. So we would get up in the air, scrummage, all not like very rarely go 8v8, normally be like 3v2s, 3v3s, 4v4s, so like quite low-key technical stuff. Bit of shape from the forwards, but decision-making, handling-wise, what we would do. Maybe a couple of live balls, but not too many. We don't want to tire ourselves out too much. And then stop for lunch, which is probably the favourite part of the day for most people. We stop. I'd normally go for a sleep at that point as well, because I love a good kip. So that's normally half an hour of my lunch gone straight away, but it's normally a 2-hour lunch, and then back at it for the afternoon, and that's out on pitch. But what's probably the big difference over here is training only lasts for maybe an hour in the afternoon. That's the longest we train. If we train for an hour, that's like a long session. That's like, oh, this is long. But everything is based on intent, so there's very little kind of walking in the session. So we'll go from some really technical skill to start with, quite low key, and they'll go straight to conditioned game, and just gets moving a bit more, then back into it. Kind of just ramps up the whole time. So as we get towards the end of the week, it'll be more defensive based. So we might have like a minute of contact. So like you'll have like maybe make 4 tackles that week, and that's it. That's all your contact done in a oneer. Or if we need to break down, we'll get a breakdown in there. That's only 5-10 minutes at the most.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into like a more defensive organization kind of game, like organized kind of game. So we'll play that for 10 minutes, and then we'll break off and we'll go into 15v15 for probably 20-25 minutes, and that's high tempo. So I think we normally cover about 7Ks in that session.
Yeah.
7Ks. We're quite a high velocity meter, and yeah, it's chips and ham from there.
No, definitely.
Not too bad. Yeah.
So you've been
good.
No, that's good. You've been playing with Waikato with players like Damien McKenzie and Liam Messam and all that. What is that? Is someone who you watched them when you were younger, particularly Liam Messam. What's it now like to share the field with them and just learn off their expertise? And like, what is it that you've noticed that separates them from other people?
Good question.
If any.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just you're constantly like bouncing off folk around here that have played high level. So I think I'm lucky at Waikato that our head coach this year, Ross Filippo, is an All Black, so I can tap into him for certain things and like ask him questions, and even like having Lee messing around the environment. Um, I just heaps to learn off him, and even guys like Damo and Anton. I don't have like much to do in positionally, but they're just like all pretty chilled roosters. Like there's no one like all that talk about kind of just being for the team, and there's no one above the rest of it. There's no egos, and I could probably believe that they're pretty down to earth and quite happy to have a yarn with you and stuff, and kind of find out about you as a person as well. I think that's kind of the big thing over here, and be able to sit down and have a coffee with them as part of a group and kind of go from there. I think there's very little ego over here when it comes to it. It's very much kind of the best of the team, kind of go from it. It's being a good person first before being a good rugby player.
Yeah.
It's probably the biggest thing I've taken from it. And they're just very good at being good people, and they'll do the extras, the work-ons and stuff. And they're obviously good at rugby, but like top, but they're good people first.
Totally. So, like, I just want to go back to that this early stages of when you started playing rugby and that. What made you want to play rugby, and who were the people in your life that have that influential role in you of pursuing rugby?
Yeah. So, because I'm probably different in my family, like no one apart from my uncle, no one's really played rugby before. My dad played football and volleyball growing up. And mum, she played hockey and netball. So yeah, there was no kind of rugby. My brother didn't play rugby. Grandparents didn't play rugby, so there's no like immediate relatives that kind of played rugby. Just my uncle, he kind of suggested one day to threw a ball and I thought, oh, this is all right. But I think probably the biggest influence even though he didn't play was probably my dad. I think he was very much like go try things, but when you try things, like you're gonna have to like commit to it and be pretty loyal to like who you play for and making sure you do it properly if you're going to do it inadvertently, and also making sure you're not getting too big for your boots. That you're still with your mates at the end of the day. There's no point being above them. Like you're with them at every part of the journey, which I think is unbelievably important. So probably my dad, to be honest, he was the biggest thing. But I think it just comes back to if you're rugby, especially if you're not enjoying it, there's not much point in playing it. So clearly, when I was younger, I was enjoying it. I think I'm quite competitive, anyways, and I was when I was younger as well. So I think just getting stuck into it.
I remember you being competitive the odd time when we were playing rugby against each other.
Nah, not at all, not me. But I think I just love the competitiveness of it, and like it's good. Like, if you got a good group of mates around it and it's good crack, then what's it not to like? To be honest.
No, definitely. And with your time at Stirling County, obviously from where you were playing, it's a bit of more of a step up. What am I right in saying did you do like a development officer job with Stuart Milne there as well, or were you part of? Could you just go into that a wee bit?
Yeah, I was his assistant development officer, so I sat below Stuart for a year. Great fellow, Stuart. Great fellow. Chat's a bit dry, but he's not a bad rooster, to be honest. So my role down there, I had a few roles down there. So I did a lot of coach kind of education stuff. So I'd go mentor coaches and observe coaches and kind of provide feedback kind of stuff, which was good. I loved that. That was quite often a Saturday morning with micros and minis coaches. So that's where like the heart of a rugby club is, just hundreds of kids running around, sliding in mud, chasing planes, picking daisies. So all good fun. And then these coaches are all like dads, they're not like professional coaches. They all come in, give it their best crack, which is great. And they always have heaps of energy as well. They love it. Even though in the pouring rain at Bridge Hall, it's not as much fun, but they love it and get stuck into it, which is good. So bit of stuff there. And I also ran their strength and conditioning as well for 8-9 months. Since Maria left until Filippo took over. So ran the S&C program, which was good. I think I took a lot of learning from that, and that was definitely a deep end moment for having done courses and assisted coaching for S&C to right, here we go run it now. So there's a lot of me kind of problem solving on the move, asking people for advice, implementing it, realizing, wait, this isn't working, changing it. And that's kind of all part of learning. It's be it in rugby or whatever, it's all really messy. I've never seen someone learn nicely, kind of muck it up quite a lot and make it look real messy and learn from your mistakes.
Yeah,
that's a big thing. Mistakes are real good. And then did something else there. And yeah, a bit of coaching as well. Coached the 16s, helped Stuart Keys there, and other bits and bobs around the place, really, whatever they needed. Skills
Yeah,
coach for their academy, and did a bit with the SRU as well as an academy, kind of S&C skills kind of hybrid coach, and yeah, did a bit of dollar as well. So kind of floated around the Stirling area doing lots of different bits and pieces. So
totally.
lots of different hats.
Good. What's with you're talking there about the skill stuff and also with you coaching. What in your eyes makes a good coach? Or when you were coaching, what is it that you were wanting to get out of the players the most?
Um, I think I like coaches that are like really open. I think that this is more like from a high performance perspective. I love coaches that just say it as it is. They don't beat around the bush. They call a spade, and just tell you it straight.
Mm.
So I think I implement that in my coaching. I'm very honest that if I make a mistake whilst I'm coaching, I'll just say, "Yeah, that's my bad," and kind of got to own the mistake. Because if you don't set the parameters where it's okay to make mistakes, then when you expect somebody to own up for a mistake, why would they own for a mistake if you haven't? It's about setting that kind of idea of honesty. And for me, it's as good as I'm trying to create good people before good players. I think that's the most important bit. If you're not willing to create people that work hard, are honest, are respectful, are able to have fun, then well, there's no point in kind of coaching rugby at that point. So at the end of the day, I'm in the youth space, so rugby being a late developing sport, they're not going to become proper athletes really until they're 23, 24, 25. So why would I not create good people first who are just so happen to be really good rugby players?
Totally.
So yeah, that's kind of way I go at it. Have a light-hearted session. Like 80% of my sessions are all games, and we just kind of play around with it from there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, kind of go from there.
No, I'm the same. And just to finish, like, what's the ultimate goal, and what's we've been out in New Zealand. Is there a would you like to return back to Scotland to play, or are you quite happy where you are? Or you want to coach out there? Where do you see yourself in the next few years, ideally?
Really good question. No idea. For me, it's I want to crack pro rugby and have a play one solid year of pro rugby where all I need to do focus for a year is play rugby. That's the sole focus. Be that here, be that Scotland, be that Japan, be that wherever. I just want to give that a crack for a year and slowly focus on rugby. I think it's everyone's kind of goal to play for the national team. So I'll stick my head above the parapet here and say that's where eventually I want to get to. So be that when I'm 40 years old and hung together by two replacement knees, I don't know, but that's the end goal, and that's kind of what you keep striving towards. So there's stepping stones along the way that you need to tick off. So for me, it's about being kind of completely mindful in the moment and kind of training hard for Waikato first, then playing well for Waikato, and then kind of stepping up and hopefully knocking on some more doors, and hopefully another door opens, and step into that door, and work my way up through that door, and just kind of owning every moment and kind of going at it from there, as opposed to worrying too much about what's ahead of you. If you do that, then you'll get nothing done.
No, I think it's so important that kind of players, or like kids these days, need to focus in the now, in the present, as opposed to like the process that you mentioned instead of the outcome. How did you start thinking in that way? Did you have a sports psychologist, or is it just an inner belief that you've always adopted, or is it just trial and error? When you've been knocked down, you've got back up and you've just learned it yourself?
I think it's probably kind of links back to my dad. He's always said, like, what was you saying, but it's useful, and the way he says it as well. My dad was, you don't really get out what you put in. So if you kind of sit around not putting any effort into it, or sit around moping, like upset about a decision or whatever, then you're not going to get anything out of it. So what's kind of the point in dwelling on it? And he's very much of like kind of positive attitude to it. Well, and I'm much believer of it as well, that if you sit around thinking about the negatives or blaming something, especially blame culture, like there's nothing to be achieved by blaming someone. Like if you take responsibility for your actions, then so be it. So say when I got dropped from 20s, like part of it was physical, and I just wasn't up to shape. That's my responsibility. I need to be up to shape to be at that level. Or if it was trying to think with Waikato, got dropped this year for one game because I wasn't up to, I just didn't get through enough work for like a Lucy lock. So like they confront me about it, and then it's my responsibility to fix it. And I owned up to it. I wasn't going to start blaming other folk for not doing their job. I said, yep, the structure doesn't help, but I should find myself more work to do. It's about taking responsibility for that, as opposed to trying to pass the blame on or becoming defensive about it. And yeah, that's kind of how I've learned to kind of stick to the moment, really. Just more
Totally.
think about it, more I kind of go about it. And I think I just listen to a lot of podcasts, and one I listen to just now is the High Performance podcast. I think the one
Nick
with
Humphreys in that.
yeah. Sounds like someone that loves rugby here, but Johnny Wilkinson spoke, and he spoke about doing like everything just in the moment completely.
Yeah.
And I think the more I think about it, the more that's what I try to do. But he's just framed it really nicely and put it in a nice little box for me. Just try to complete everything, every task to the best of your ability, as opposed to trying to skirt things. So yeah.
No, I've been really enjoying his that interview with Wilkinson as well, just talking about just being fully engaged, fully engaged in the present and with that process, and almost takes the stress and the pressure off the outcome. So I think that's something we can all strive for in life.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those things. I think it's one of those things as well. If you do something and you realize it's half done, go do it again, because you've only kind of half done it, and it's building like resilience to do it. I think I question myself quite a lot when I'm doing stuff like that. And it might seem a bit psychotic, but it seems to be all right.
Well, listen, thanks for jumping on and speaking to us. This morning, but it's evening with you.
It's close to my bedtime. It's almost 10 o'clock. It's 9:30. Half an hour in its bed.
Perfect. Well, all the best for the rest of the season, and hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, good luck with the coaching stuff. Enjoy the camp in Bankery.
Good pal.